strangely enough, last night we were laughing about this. You know, where I live, we have a lot of scaffolders. We have a lot of asbestos strippers, and we have a lot of people who work offshore, all because the dads did.
Yeah.
A lot of them are following into what the dad says. So if the dad at home says, "Listen, kids, look at me. We've got a 4-bedroom detached house, and I did rubbish at school," there's no motivation at all.
Yeah. Yeah, your family life is going to massively impact the direction of, you know, children, aren't they?
Yeah.
So again, you get pushed into it. So socioeconomic is people's, you know, cultural and personal backgrounds will impact education, and again includes their aspirations, needs, and decision making. People want to follow the footsteps of the parents normally, or they might go a complete different. I've gone a complete different route than my parents, but more often than not, you do follow in your parents' footsteps because it seems normal. 1 in 5 UK families are deemed to live in poverty, and how does that affect people's education?
They've not got the same access to after-school classes. They certainly won't have personal tutors. They may have to stay at home to look after other family members while parents work more. And that would impact on the ability to study from home. Homework might be lacking. You know, it just goes with everything that comes with not having access to more services to others.
Also, that discrimination element. I think, like, I've worked with people before, and you know, when they had these aspirations to be different things, but they didn't dare because in their community, you know, a lot of them were maybe, you know, out of work or unemployed or, you know, claiming benefits, that type of thing. So then when they had these aspirations to be qualified and to go further, you know, they were kind of, you know, bullied, or, you know, they had the mick took out of them because they wanted better and they didn't have that support network, because it was kind of the whole thing of, you know, well, why? Look at us. We you know, we don't work or we don't go to college and we've got a house and we're managing fine. So again, it's that management of expectations of, well, you know, why should I try any harder when everything's kind of okay? So again, it's about that level of what they're comfortable with, where if they haven't got anybody pushing them to go higher, then, you know, it's gonna be really difficult for them to kind of break that chain, I think.
Yeah, you hear a lot of especially when it comes to university graduates, their parents push them into the same sort of universities as well. Well, in fairness, universities are not for everyone. They serve, you know, a purpose, and I can see the benefits of going to university. I went myself, but sometimes, depending on what you want to do, apprenticeships might be the best option, because actually you get a mixture of both as well. And there's lots of individuals who I've seen go to university who've got, you know, they complete a course, but they have no practical experience in the subjects. Actually, that can be a massive disadvantage to them, you know, applying, you know, a job in the real world. So again, it's getting that balance right. Those working in, I don't know, the armed forces, for example, they get the balance of that experience and, you know, a good career that comes with that as well, and you get paid. So there are benefits to different sort of routes as well. So cultural and personal backgrounds. Can anyone give any sort of examples of people you may know?
Yeah, hugely. So at the moment, every door course I teach, the full door course, I have minimum of 6 either Nigerian or Indian students on from the local university, which for us is brilliant because they are punctual, they are intelligent, they pay without whinging, they are on time, they listen, they take notes, they actually do they're just brilliant students. Now, some of those have only been in the UK for kind of 6 months plus, but they've got the right to work as a student. So they're doing the door course to basically pay for some of the tuition fees. And, you know, these initial and diagnostic assessments give us the opportunity to, one, satisfy the requirements of the SIA and the AOs, but also a chance. I put more provisions in place, not in a discriminatory sense, just that I know how the university students want things delivered. So I will give pre-course access. I use Google Classroom now to add people to read-only PowerPoints, because I know they will come in with a structured plan of attack on how to actually complete the course in the best way for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about how does the culture affect a learner's achievement?
Because with their culture, especially the Nigerian lads, you know, they have an expectation to not fail. So they will come in, you know, really hold the head above water. They'll go out of the way to learn more information. You know, the notes will be in depth. They'll ask really relevant questions to the course content. It's good. It's really good to work with.
Yeah, from my experience, I find UK workers or even UK learners tend to be less motivated, whether it's this entitlement because
hugely,
of
hugely, and it is entitlement without a doubt. They expect to be educated, you know, because of the way our education system is. Everybody has the right to it under the Human Rights Act, and I think sometimes people abuse that right like it is something that they're just, yeah, well, I can take it or leave it.
Yeah, then you've got individuals' personal backgrounds that's going to influence their behaviour, their attitudes in life as well. So that's going to impact the difference between someone who I'm going to completely studies, you know, to the best of my ability, to others who potentially are, you know, they've already got reasons why they can't pass the course. They've already got it, and that's just down to their personality through, you know, their upbringing as well. So you have to be careful of that. Work history as well. What about work history? Especially mature learners.
If you're teaching courses like job centre students, some of them are there because they want to be, but some are there because they're being told they have to be there, and they haven't worked in however long, and they don't want to be there, and they're there because it's the only way they're going to still get their money. And their attitude, not all of them, some of them really do want to be there, but some of them are just, their attitude is just terrible.
Yeah, so I think work history is a good indicator of how, you know, how successful a learner could be as well. So you think about mature learners who, you know, maybe don't have extensive teaching history, but maybe they've got achievement. And I had this learner the other day actually who I spoke to, hasn't really taught. He's only got his AET, but he's got a, you know, level 5, and he's worked extensively in learning and development, which, you know, is a very good candidate for a course like this. Actually, they bring so many different skills. Again, how applicable are you? And we talk about people who want to work in teaching. The first question I ask them is, what do you do? How long have you been doing it? Because actually, that's a better indicator. You know, I've been working as a early years manager for like 10 years, and thinking, well, you're actually, yeah, you may not have studied teaching before, but you have so much experience in your knowledge, in your industry, that, you know, you can actually do really good. You can give that information that people, you know, haven't had that experience, can. So again, you look at it that way, can they achieve? And educational achievement as well is a good, I suppose, a benchmark of showing their capabilities of studying at particular levels as well. Generally speaking, if I see someone with a master's or level 5s, level 6s, and even seeing some of your CVs where you've got, you know, probably dozens of different qualifications under your belt, it just shows, you know, you have that motivation to actually complete the course. You've got that motivation, that ability to do so. And you might look at others who have got a very brief, you know, educational background. You're thinking, you know, potentially you're going to struggle. So can we look at alternative ways? Or you might need to, that will impact how much support you give that learner as well. So yeah. So how do these actually affect needs, aspirations, and decision-making abilities and approach to learning?
What's going to impact the way they feel about learning? It's going to impact, you know, it's going to impact their motivation, or maybe if they've got all these different things going on, cultural differences, or they've got limited support, or they might not think they're equipped, or whatever. It's going to really impact their approach to making that step to get back into education, or staying motivated and committed to complete something that they've started.
No, absolutely. Anyone else want to add to that?
I think.
Yeah, well.
Sorry, go on.
No, it's okay.
I think if you go back to work history and then look at this, if you look at somebody who's been working in the security industry, maybe on the doors for the past 10, 15 years, and they're coming to the top-up course and they're doing a physical intervention, a lot of the attitude I get from a lot of people is, this is crap. Why do I have to do this? I don't want to be doing this. And that affects what they learn, and it affects how they take part in the course. Now, we all know physical intervention for the security industry isn't going to teach you to deal with somebody who wants to bottle you or rip your head off. But I think it's about delivering it in a way that's positive as well, to show them that some of the skills do actually work. We all know that not everything's going to work on everybody, but it's about having that positive attitude as well and showing them, look, these do work from time to time, and they can be used. But the attitude I get from people is, not everybody, but some people, this is rubbish and I don't want to be doing this.
Yeah, unfortunately, and that's the difference between a professional and maybe someone who's not professional, is that open-mindedness to, you know what, I can learn something. I might not take a lot from here as someone who's new to the industry, but actually I could take a little bit maybe that I could use, or it might just open up my mindset. Thinking, you know, I'm not going to take anything from this, but it's being able to recognize it and make your decisions based on that, not just being completely shut off to any sort of new information that's given to you. Because the reality of it is professionals are open. They're open to learning new things. And obviously seeing your one's course, you are open to learning new strategy. The reality of it is you complete your diploma, you can literally just not make any changes whatsoever to the way you teach. And that's completely up to you. But the fact that you're open-minded, you know, that this may work for you, this may not. Again, it's adapting it to your own styles. And that's the most important thing. And that's the difference between professional and not. So this kind of like moves on to the next stage. I want you to just briefly map out your initial assessment procedures. So how do you, and this might, Steve, this is not really going to be applicable to you because you don't.
I was thinking that.
But again, if you were to run your own, so I know you talked about starting up your own thing anyway. So could you potentially draw how your initial assessment procedure would look like? And to be honest, depending on what you're teaching, if I'm teaching an EFAW at work qualification, I'm just going to ask who's worked and who's had the qualification before. That's pretty much as far as it's going to go. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I don't care about their English. I don't care about their maths. Potentially, obviously, English for their ability to complete their exams. But the reality of it is going to have a very limited impact on a shorter course. Now, you see a lot of the funded training programs that you do, they deliver, they have, you know, they want you to deliver numeracy, but they don't consider what courses you're actually teaching, whether that's going to make a relevant impact. And more often than not, and I've seen it where learners just encouraged to skip through it as quickly as they can because there's no sort of value placed upon that process. So how does that look for you? Aaron, you might want to look at, you know, how your initial assessment procedure might be for your own company. I'll give you a couple minutes to just have a go at this one. And there might be areas here where you could look at refining your sort of procedures. So what I put on the screen is the next slide is you can look at these sort of areas as well, potentially. And it's all going to be individual to you, to your organization. Okay, Aaron, are you done?
Yeah.
What have you come up with for yours?
So my one is, you know, my initial assessment is English diagnostic. and then a questionnaire, any sends, do I need to make any reasonable adjustments? Then from there, I go on to my pre-course requisites, like the distance learning, the ACTS qualification. Once I actually come in the classroom, I check over both of those just before they come in. Once they come in and start, obviously discussional point, past history, skills, employment, relevant knowledge of the industry, what their goals are from the course. Is it to get promoted, or is it just to keep in line with changes in regs? I also have to look at any current illness and conditions by getting them to fill in a medical questionnaire when they're undertaking practical assessments, i.e. EFAW or PDI. I then actually do the assessments. I then appraise the assessments at the end and do a self-assessment incorporated with that. Then I do a group assessment as well. What do you guys think? What went well? What could be improved? How would you do it differently? And then finally, an end point discussion.
Yeah, lovely. Relevant to your subject. Perfect. Anything you would do differently?
No, not really. I've got, obviously, my joining instructions point out, and if they've got any special needs, to let me know. The enrolment form will have the same. Do you have any special requirements or special needs that I need to be aware about? So that's part of the initial assessment. Obviously, they do their English and maths assessment if they're doing the level 4 education training. Obviously, if it's the door course, it would be the English assessment. For the doors, I use Highfield Vault, so that's got an initial assessment on there for the English that they complete. Again, talk to them, find out if there's anything that needs to be done. So initial assessment is assessing their English language for their speaking when talking to them, and then carrying out the assessments themselves.
Good, excellent. Steve, what would you do?
It's a hard one. I think the only one I could really get involved in would be probably, depending on the course, would be level of English, and that's probably about it. Because I think for me at the moment, most of the course I deliver is sort of the ones that I do at the moment, but it's for myself. So sort of majority of it is a 3-hour awareness course or a 4-day like level 2 or level 3 qualification, and that would really be about it. So it's a little bit different from what everybody else is covering. Unless it's a job in, say, a college or something, where then obviously had to interviews and discussions to work out what people would come, whether they suitable for the course, could be work with the individual, what they required. But from my point of view, I think most of it is literally going to be things like level of English, and possibly if I was doing a trainer, some sort of initial assessment to know what they knew, what qualifications they've got, to be able to take on the trainer qualification. But that would probably be about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got to adjust it for what you're teaching as well. So it's going to be different for your organization. But again, this would probably vary depending on the qualification you're delivering as well. So you might have set requirements from different qualifications. And you also might think that, some of it is not going to be applicable for shorter courses rather than longer courses. Again, you have to adapt as you see fit. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. How I would deliver a 1-day trainer would be different to, well, actually, in fairness, how I deliver the AET is different to the diploma. Again, you're going to ask different questions. You're going to evaluate different things, and work experience is obviously not really that important when it comes to AET, but it's actually crucial, and especially your CAVA, especially in your certificate and your diploma, because you need that work placement. Again, you might talk about, you might vary the process. Now, ideally, before they sort of any learner does an initial sort of induction, I would prefer them to actually have a consultation before they join the course, so I can give them that information, and potentially we can skip a few stages here. But it depends on their own individual sort of journey, I suppose, signing up to your courses as well, because they're going to be different. So you just have to be adaptable, because things are not always going to be perfect. Now, when we have the self-study options, there are some learners who they'll just crack on with their studies and not actually bother with the initial assessments. And again, I get initial assessments after they've completed the course, and by then it's a bit too late because I know their capabilities when it comes to learning. So again, you have to look at the learner journey when it comes to this as well. What tools do you have? So initially I used to use the BKSB assessment, but realistically they are overwhelming for individuals who struggle with English and maths. And I've seen it before where, you know, people have actually just torn up the paper because it's just too much for them. And again, funding bodies in particular require you to fill out this information when it should be a bit more flexible to individual learners.
What do you recommend other than that BKSB, mate? Because obviously that's a big problem with us, to be honest, is frustrated learners with like BKSB English, because it's certainly by no means the easiest, is it? It really isn't. What
are your requirements? Do they have to be?
So it's for the DS. It's for the DS. No, it's just got to be an initial assessment, hasn't it? It is equivalent to a level 1.
Who are you with?
Highfield.
Okay, if Highfield got their own one, or have they got
on Highfield Vault? They do.
Yeah.
So how do you get access? How do you get access to that? But is that just through my?
Go to your account manager, and there's a lady called Chelsea. I think it is Chelsea Tyler. She'll get in contact with you and set you up. And then as you register learners on it, they bill you for the exam paper, the book, which is online, because you can get it on Vault itself. The registrations. There's no additional charge for the door supervisor qual.
But my company charges £35 for people to do the initial assessment. That's out of my hands. I have no process in that. So then paying a registration fee, it's not the end of the world at all.
Yeah, if you're using the top up, there's an £5 charge for the Vault.
Yeah.
Can you use your own?
There's no extra charge.
Can you use your own?
You can use your own,
yeah.
You know, it takes, in fairness, you should, from the portal, you might be able to download my one that I've done. It's got the answers on there as well, English and maths. 25 questions, much shorter.
Also, is your...
Yeah, I just use my own because, again, I'm not stipulated by any awarding bodies or funding to have a thing. So
I think, didn't we do the BKSB with you, though? I mean, I think my initial assessment with you is a BKSB.
No, you did that. You did the online one where you did it and marked it for me. I didn't have to touch that.
You forgot to screenshot your results, Darren, remember, and I tortured you for it.
I remember doing it, but then the other week I went on to our portal, and I'm sure there was 2 BKSB books there because I went to download them, but they're in PDF.
Okay, so they're there for you to download anyway, but you can just use the online stuff. And I don't want to be marking it. I got better things to do than mark initial assessments.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Can you save yourself time for things that can? Because at the end of the day, if I mark it, I'm just going to be sitting there going tick, tick, cross. When why?
Yeah.
And you think about the overall what we're looking for learners to do is the ability. I don't know how to screenshot this. It's like straight away, it's like this person's going to need ICT support straight away because they don't know how to do it. Again, although I don't do an ICT assessment, but you using the portal, and you can see straight away people have difficulties using portals or taking a screenshot of working OneDrive. Thinking these are key skills people need to know anyway, especially if you're teaching. You need to be able to get around a computer if you're teaching. Maybe it's not so much when you're teaching the door course. But the reality of it is showing other areas which they need to develop. And that it's not a case of we don't do an ICT test. It's actually how you operate and work around this is actually showing your ability and how much support I need to do as well. And the reality of it, some people just don't get the grasp of using technology, which is okay. And we make adjustments for those individuals. And it's not me being lazy of having everything automatically marked. It's actually saving me time, so I actually spend more time on things that actually matter, which will make a difference. And again, think about all of you, you're all swamped for time, and I know that. Again, seeing your work schedules and what you do outside of work is, can you save yourself that little bit of time to make your life a lot easier? And potentially look at alternatives rather than the BKSBs where you have to manually mark. And I've seen... Aaron.
That's why our office charges for them, because it's our admin staff that mark them.
Yeah. I would look at along those routes of, save yourself time, save yourself fees, but initial assessments is, it should be part of your course. It should be part of the, your enrollment process. So what you're charging is.
Believe me, I've had this argument, but the guy I had the argument with died. Harry, my boss passed away. So he put it in place and died a week later. And then we're like, listen, it's a stupid idea, but I can't argue with him. And everyone's like, well, no, Harry put it in place. I'm like, but he's dead. We can't change that. He died. He put something in place that was a stupid decision. What was happening, he was getting frustrated because the odd time he did come in the office, the staff were having people in doing the initial assessments because they couldn't do them online. So they were printing them off, they were coming in. So in his eyes, we were printing things off. Learners were coming at different times of the day, taking the admin girls off their roles. And I said, listen, we just need to pay for it and do it online, but they wouldn't pay for it. So he created like a toxic atmosphere around it, really, but they will not take it out. It's ridiculous. So our full door course, instead of being like everyone else's 350, we're 385.
Yeah.
So you do lose business. We do lose business because of it. Like our top up, instead of being 175, is 210.
You should do, when you do your own companies, look at these sort of things as well. I consider stuff anyway. I'm more than happy to. But generally speaking, when it comes to when I do the induction meetings with everyone, is I don't particularly want to speak to anyone until they've gone through that sort of process. So it's not just a chit chat. It's I need to discuss how your English and maths are. I need to see that your IRP, which you complete beforehand and all that, because that's actually going to be the basis of the chat. And actually having that information is I can prepare for it rather than you're just telling me on the spot and I have limited information to go on, which makes the whole process a bit more effective as well. So again, it always leads on to your diagnostic assessment, so your one-to-one conversations, and sometimes we have that even before they've even joined the course. So again, it's you have to work out how it fits. Any self-assessments? And generally speaking, your ILP will say how your experience when teaching, and that's generally enough really. So we can kind of work from there. Now, initially, I gave you 14 sort of statements to judge yourself against, and we do this on our quizzes as well. See how good a teacher are you, and I give you 4 statements, and you have to answer 1 to 4, and you get a score on that, and that's against the Ofsted's requirements as well. Potentially, you could analyze a piece of free writing or dictation exercise. Now, I've kind of ignored that because we give a little bit more support, I suppose, from how you structure your writing as well. Again, for your SIA courses is knowing their ability to write to meet the qualification requirements. And again, can they be are they paper-based or are they online? So these are sort of factors to consider. Talk about the environment is, we do everything online. We've got everything in your folders, which you can see. Again, save the environment, save a bit of money by avoiding paper, and printing can be quite awkward. But again, paper is going to be easier if you're face-to-face with your learners. If you're, remote, then online is probably going to be the easiest method. So you have to work out what's best for you. And that's perfectly okay as well. So how would you gather all of this information?
Well, learner files, paper-based or online-based. I personally, Google Drive is the best thing I have in my life.
Yeah, upload everything you got and go through it. Yeah. Background knowledge and information. So one good thing about social media is that I generally get to know people as well before they join the course. It's not a case of normally it's not just a spur of the moment. It's a relationship that's been built. You get to know people. Written tests. You might do written tests in your industry. So potentially with the DS courses, I might just throw them out a short exam to see where they are. Do they actually know what they're talking about? Because again, some learners, especially in security, will enhance the self-assessment process where they know more than they actually do. Group discussions, course topics, any pre-admission assessments you do. Again, practical examinations. Could you get someone to teach, or could you get them to, can you observe them in the workplace? So these might be areas which you can use. Again, it's not going to be applicable to everyone as well. So you should pay particular attention to those who have any particular needs, such as learning disabilities, or those who are, weaker than their peers. And again, you might not come across this information immediately. It might, start to show with your first morning, with your first day at least as well.
Yeah.
What information could you put in your ILPs? So these will form part of your ILPs, but what else could you add?
Target dates.
Target dates is a good one.
Current qualifications.
Yeah. Wow.
How they currently feel about their confidence levels, like what you've just done with us with that little poll.
Yeah.
Reasonable adjustments. I think 1,000 partners, if they do have any difficulties or they do have reasonable adjustments, then I think you need to put something in there that the end date is potentially estimated. And I always feel sometimes with the learners that, if they're finishing in 12 months, then I kind of make a point to say, but you know what, don't worry if you need a little bit longer because of whatever reason, that's fine. This date here is just an estimation. And it's, just for the purpose of that, this is what the estimated date is. However, if we go beyond that, we could look at it, doing a review and then amending that date in accordance with your needs.
Yeah, absolutely. With a diploma, you get 2 years. Generally speaking, I try and push everyone into 12 months as sort of your target, but life gets in the way. And the way these obviously online sessions are sort of spaced, they are within 12 months, but people go through at different paces. As you can see on the group last week, you got some people who are kind of restarting because they haven't really got far because they've been busy with other stuff that goes on. So again, it's being able to adjust these target dates. And the reality of it is you do, Steve, do you do any funded qualifications?
I don't know. None of it is through that. All we do is companies. For me, I just get companies approach me about training, or if I've got spaces, I'll open up and just post in Facebook groups if people need some training. And the company I do most of my freelance for, it's just care homes that we've got staff that need training in this topic. Book them either in on an open course, or they come to us, they've got no premises, or we go to them, deliver the training, and that's it. So I don't get involved with any of that at all.
Yeah, fair enough. So from my sort of experience with funded qualifications, is you have to fill out a lot of admin, and that's one thing I really hate about it. It's more admin than anything. That you have to complete an ILP, but it's just about the starting process, not how it finishes. So what you can literally just, right, here's your plan. Once the plan is done, that's it. We don't need to revisit this paperwork, and it depends on the value your learners get from this as well. I find because of I'm generally pretty good at knowing where people are. And again, I know exactly where each of you are with your work. Again, some people who are probably less communicative, less reachable are, again, I need to rely on notes as well to see where they are, because sometimes it's quite difficult to track because we are human as well. So think about sort of systems you could use to monitor learner progress, and a lot of mine is, everything that I do is automated, so I know exactly where you are against your plan dates. And I do keep notes of conversations that we do have, mostly anyway, and not every sort of conversation, but most current skills ratings. So where are people now in comparison to where they want to go? So again, you could show progress through someone being on the course, learning outcomes on the course and how that relates to their goals, maybe. Action plans. So yeah, you've got 2 years to complete the diploma, but that's not really enough. So again, we have short goals, short-term targets as well. So again, how we track in progress and assessment. And I had one learner, he's really, really, really nice lad, actually. He's literally, he's now completed, I believe, 6 units. So he's quite up. He's at the same pace as you guys now. But only 2 weeks ago, he had nothing closed out because he would just keep working on different ones rather than readdressing them and getting them closed out. And I just find it really baffling in some way, because, you know, I always like to have, right, unit 1 is closed, unit 2 is closed. And he kept them all open. He was pretty much there with all of them, but just kept starting new units without finishing off with the old ones. But everyone's different as well. What steps need to be taken as well to complete? Well, that's one thing that can be overlooked. Now, teaching placement is going to be one. We've got, generally speaking, one learner in particular who I'm fully aware of, his teaching placement is going to end in a few months. So we've kind of gone against the norm of, you know, wait till unit 4 before we start close stuff out. He's now capturing his evidence for the observations straight away, because there is the potential he may not be in that position later on. But at least we cover the guidance of the learning outcomes. And what skills need to be learned as well. So what skills do you need to learn throughout your programs? And the key thing everyone needs to be able to do is to write your assignments to a level 5 qualification. And again, more often than not, in fairness, everyone here is pretty good with theirs, but there are some people who really, really struggle, and you have to be able to show them and to help them develop to get to that skill. Otherwise, they can have all the information in the world, but if they can't show you their knowledge on paper, then they're really going to struggle with the qualification. So again, it's just being aware of that. What skills do your learners need to demonstrate? There might just be, you know, the core skills as you need to know knowledge and conflict management, perform the physical intervention, but are there any other skills that are dependent upon it? IT skills could be something for longer programs. Maybe study skills could be something that you could introduce. Anything else you can think of outside of that?
Sustainability.
Yeah. How do you mean?
The ability to sustain the course. So, like when you mentioned about the funded learners, you know, you've got mid reviews and exit reviews. So having constant little reviews, not just, you know, beginning and end, doing things along the way. So sustainability is about keeping the learner in the knowledge of what's going on in the course, not just going, you start here, you end here, but at each stage showing them that, look, you've reached a 10% milestone or a 20% milestone.
Accountability would be one that I definitely think is overlooked as well, is your ability to take ownership of your own studies, because there's only so much I can do. It's reliant on people to actually do the work. So again, are these things that we need to help to teach them? Again, there might be skills you need to learn because of that. But yeah, absolutely. Communication skills, maybe. How do you communicate? Well, even what are smart goals? Can we teach our learners how to do that? Because again, that's going to help them with their studies, break stuff down. You see NEBOSH, for example, they expect a lot of learners fail because they can't plan their own study times. They run out of time when it comes to the assessment. Again, because they can't plan. They can't plan to do their assignments within, you know, everything else that goes on as well. So that's a big factor. So question 6, and actually we've gone into quite detail on this. Analyze how your learners' socio-economic and cultural and personal backgrounds, work history, and educational achievement can affect needs, aspirations, decision-making abilities, and approaches to learning. Okay. So again, you want to recap with your ILP, your diagnostic assessments as well. What are benefits and limitations? So how do they all impact? And ultimately, it's all about how do they impact your ILPs? How do they, you know, lead to that? Because that's the end sort of goal, isn't it? Any questions?
No.
So you all, in fairness, you all do this other than Steve, but think about, Steve, the conversations we had as well, how that impacts your assessments. Again, each learner journey is actually different, even though there is a common sort of theme. They will change depending on each individual learner, especially for the longer courses, like door courses, Unit 1. They're all in the same sort of. There's going to be very little differences between each one. So again, pros and cons of them. Happy?
Yep.
Right, it's 12:30. Do you want to stop for lunch, or do you want to carry on for another half hour. How are you all feeling?
I'm easy.
Yeah, fine.
Mine's
Yeah. I'm obviously just worried that Aaron needs to go off at 1 o'clock for 10 minutes. Let's do one
No,
more.
it's all right. He's pulled the plug because he's a selfish pig. He's decided that if he loses, he doesn't want it live streaming because he's a narcissistic little bellend.
Fair enough.
So that's all right with that. Sorry.
Just so you know as well, Aaron, this session is recorded for.
Sorry. I do apologise. Sorry.
I'm sure he won't watch this lesson.
No. I'll tell him to his face. Yeah.
I'm going to tell him to watch it now, Aaron. I'm going to get in touch with Ethan and I want to tell him what he said.
What's he going to do? What's he going to do?
He's mad.
well,
yeah, that's all he's got. All he's got.
Okay, what we'll do is I think we should just stop there for, how long do you need? Half an hour?
Yeah.
Or more?
Yeah.
Does anyone need any difference in half an hour?
Fine.
No,
Honestly, I normally wouldn't sort of encourage this in a classroom environment, but feel free. You can eat your lunch as we go through as well. So 'cause again, you're not having crumbs at my office, so that's fine. That's fine.
No
right.
problem.
It's 25 to 1:05.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
We'll see you shortly.
I'll do it.
Bye-bye.
How you doing, Paul?
Yeah, not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, good. How's life treating you?
Yeah, busy.
Yeah, I can imagine. How you get on Unit 2?
To be honest, I haven't got much through it yet.
Yeah, fair enough. Are you going to wait for sort of the next cohort to go through it next month?
No, I'm going to crack on with it and get it done.
Yeah,
I
fair enough.
want to get this done by the end of the year or beginning of next year.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've got quite a bit to do to catch up on it.
Yeah, you're logging your teaching hours anyway, aren't you?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, one thing I suppose to keep in mind as well, if you start to look at the work products and stuff you have to create as part of your assessments, and then start to look to embed them in your sessions, obviously we can start closing out as much as that as possible.
Yeah.
Because occasionally what some individuals do is they'll go through all the units and then they'll start looking at the work when it's something they could have been working on a long time before. It's just gathering as well. And in fairness, most of it you'll do. Again, it's just ensure that you just keep the records of stuff that you've already done. Use that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that I'm finding it difficult, but it's not too bad. It's just more finding the time to
absolutely
sit down and do it.
And that's the thing, isn't it? It's you have to prioritize, and sometimes studying is never going to be the first choice, especially when you're running a business. It can't be, and some things have to slide. I find it all the time is just trying to juggle everything, and you have to sort of decide, which one is most urgent at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, but like I said, I want to get it finished by the end of the year, so I'm gonna start putting a bit more time into it.
Cool. Hi, Aaron.
I just listening to that there. My friend who I work with, Sean, he's a very peculiar person, very good at his job. But he recently qualified as a tutor. But he did his counselling degree whilst at work on a door on his mobile phone.
No.
And he's got a distinction. Literally, just sat with his phone all night. The club we worked on wasn't really busy, so he's literally done a degree on his phone. I was like, I don't know how that is even possible. I've got to surround myself with all sorts of crap. I've got computer screens, books open, notes all over the place. I was like, I couldn't think of anything worse than someone saying to me, answer that question on your phone. I was like, my brain not a chance. But yeah, I was like, that's a skill set within itself. He's like his lecturer from college has made him a little certificate just to honour the fact that if he disrespected that much, he was impressed by doing it all on his phone.
That's amazing. I wouldn't think I'd do that. I'm like you. I've got books all over the place when I'm doing it.
Yeah, I'm not like that at all. I can, as long as I got my laptop, that's it. I don't need anything else. I don't really go for. I'll buy books. I just won't read them because they're just too fiddly. With laptop, it's what I've got. My sort of tricks have lots of different windows open. That sort of some monitors have like 10 different windows open. But you think about the time people waste on their mobile phones. What you could be doing with that time.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's because generally speaking, you scroll. Other than my sort of thing is football scores. Always on Sky Sports News, even at like midnight, you're thinking, well, nothing's good. There's no news at this time. I don't know why I'm scrolling. But the amount of time you could save as well, and timekeeping is, a lot of people say they don't have time. It's the fact they just don't make time. There comes to a point where you do have so much stuff going on, and at the moment we're sort of renovating the garden, digging that out, teaching. We've got new courses going on holiday next weekend, and doing a NEBOSH as well. It's like it's a ridiculous amount of hours, but if you plan your time properly, you can do it. The fact that a lot of individuals waste a lot of time unnecessarily. So I can go for a nice little bike ride and watch a relevant video or something like that, just to multitask, and it just makes life a lot easier. Right, so we are on question 7, I think now. So kind of like halfway there. So just so you're aware as well, the coaching and mentoring unit. So over half the questions are kind of the same, but within a coaching and mentoring context as well, which we'll cover later on. But why is it important for learners to take responsibility for their own learning?
Because self-motivation goes a long way. It really does. And you're also teaching them as well productivity.
Yeah. Self-study. And that's the thing. A lot of people go for self-study because it's the cheapest method. But unless you have that mindset or being able to be responsible for that learning, a lot of the time people they're wasting money. Because there's no one sort of pushing them or anything like that. They don't have that internal sort of motivation to progress. And I see it a lot of the time is, it's all good you go for the cheapest route, but it's actually, does it suit you? And otherwise you're just wasting money. You put it down the toilet. Whereas, self-study is cheaper. And for me, I'm quite happy I can sit there in an evening and learn. Even with the fire service, we got basically we've got about 150 different courses we have to go through every year, and I do that in my sort of, that's what I use. I got 5 minutes here, I'll go through it on my phone. But there are too many people who say they don't have time. It's because they don't take responsibility of what they do that time as well. How can they actually make those changes to succeed in life as well? It's just like a lack of discipline, I think, in most cases. So why should learners take responsibility for their own learning? Can you give a reason? Can each of you give a reason why they should?
It shows that they're committed and they're able to progress themselves.
Yeah, and how does that prepare them for the workplace?
Because they'll need it in later life. Obviously, if they can't commit to, say, a 12-month course, how are they going to commit to a career where it's got things such as, you've got other roles and responsibilities, you've got accountability, you've got to be there at a certain time, you've got a certain workload to finish. And if they couldn't, say, hand in an assignment on a certain date or work to a certain standard, then, it's going to make it very difficult for them in later life to forge a career or have that commitment to complete something.
Yeah. Yes, it's actually going to massively impact their career, isn't it? So you think about maybe the differences between having the AET and maybe going up to the CET and DET is, they actively taking responsibility for their own development. A lot of teachers don't do that themselves. What about you, Steve? Why should your learners take responsibility for their own learning?
I think the biggest responsibility for learning is going to be the ability to use the skills post what you learn on the course.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people over the years who've done a course and then just decide not to use it. So it's like, well, what was the point in doing the course in the first place? If you take responsibility for learning it, surely you're going to utilise what you've learned on that course. That's what you hope. So when for example, I did my sports therapy foundation degree. I think I was working through it all, and I know within a couple of years, most of them weren't even using the qualification. They'd gone off on different routes. It's like, well, why put the time, the money, and everything in if you're not going to use it? So if you're not taking something you're learning, then are you really going to use the qualifications that you're trying to gain and get?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I took a massive career change. So when I finished my master's, I did my PGC, but I actually went into performance analysis to different football clubs. And I basically just stopped at some point and just went into security and all, and kind of developed it that route. But overall, yeah, it's a different career direction. But at the same time, is a lot of the skills I learned through that process actually is what makes me what I am today. In a way, yeah, my education could have been a lot cheaper, but will I be where I am now if I didn't go down that route? Probably not, actually. But they're sort of skills, especially when you talk about employability, these skills, how transferable are they? And you having responsibility, accountability, timekeeping, all that sort of stuff is the difference between you being successful in your career, or even when you transition roles. If you do decide to go down a different route, you can actually make that change relatively easy. Whereas if you don't have this responsibility for learning, how do you develop yourself in different environments? How do you develop yourself, to be the best you can? It's going to limit your ability to succeed in the workplace, or in your ability to maybe run a business as well. So it does affect your lives completely. So here are several reasons. So do you remember what the differences between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation are?
Yeah, intrinsic comes from within, so you actually want to take part. Extrinsic could be something like your employer is telling you have to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're saying you have to do it.
And how many of you are on this course because your employer wants you to do it? Yeah, you all want to increase your knowledge, become better tutors, you're passionate about the industry, and that's what makes you go from, do you hand in your assignment or do you actually put in that time? And it all comes intrinsically. And we're doing a free competition actually on the diploma, and surprisingly, we get a lot of people who join who are extrinsically motivated. I guarantee I could offer all of them a free place and not one of them would complete the qualification. Because it's all about that. Yeah, they want it, but they're not actually willing to, they don't actually value what it can do for them. So that makes a difference. A greater understanding of your ability. Why is that important?
Self-motivation, isn't it?
Yeah. Again,
going back to Maslow, isn't it? Like Maslow's hierarchy of needs and things, where obviously the self-actualization of when you go through that process and you can realize what you're capable of, then you'll get that self-actualization of what values you have and what you want to do with your life and what things that you value. So it's all that process of it, I think. And then once you know what you're capable of, that'll then push you to maybe pursue other things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't disagree with that. Steve, anything else you want to add to that?
No, I wouldn't. I think it'd be the same thing as well.
Fantastic. What about setting your own objectives? How's that important, especially life? What's the next, after you've done your diploma, what's the next stage? So how are you going to set your own your own objectives?
Well, it gives you that motivation. It gives you that drive to go to where you want to go and be where you want to be. So, for example, for me, once I've done this, I want to do the level 6.
Yeah.
That is my objective. And that gives me the motivation to complete this one in order to get to that next stage.
Yeah, it's building those sort of foundations, I suppose, for the next level as well. And one thing that you don't get taught probably at school, which you should have, is like your own, how do you study effectively as well? Because a lot of people just waste the time. They'll read these textbooks and it just doesn't sink in, but they'll just keep reading it, knowing it. Or quite often you see this in school is everyone will stay up late the night before the exam to study. And the reality of it is, if you're doing that, it's not going to make any difference because you can't retain that information. It's a little bit too late as well. So potentially you can be looking at things like, which ways do I learn better as well? We've all got our own sort of learning preferences at certain times. How does that work good for you? How can you maximize your learning that way as well? Does anyone have any sort of methods to help you study? What do you do?
Just read and write things down, really.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, so for this, for example, I'll go through the learning portal. I'll attend these, obviously. I'll go through the learning portal. I will watch YouTube videos that are already on there if I've not been part of it. I'll then go through the lessons, make notes, and I'll then tackle the questions.
Yeah. So for my diploma, instead of reading, hundreds of hours about something that might not, it probably won't stick anyway in a reader. I just wait until the exam is published. I know the exam question, then I can actually do my research based around the topics, rather than waste so much time on topics which are not even included in the exam. So it's my knowledge, but it's not going to affect my exam results. So again, how do you plan? And this is sort of like what I've learned from, tendering for public contracts, is actually you would, before you do anything, what is the question being answered? Start doing your research based across that question. And that will help you to make notes that are relevant and applying it that way, rather than doing too much. You could read everything, you could go through every single theory, but the reality of it is you only need to pick 3 in most instances. So you can actually just relate, find them and research them a bit more and actually help you in the long run. Learning agreements as well, setting your own targets. What can you do? What is achieved? What can't be achieved? If we could go back to your agreement with your learners, so what is within your tutoring agreement, what are your responsibilities, and this will vary depending on your organisation and what you can and cannot do as well. I tend to get a lot of people saying, if I do this course, will you help me to get a job? I said, yeah, I can help you, but there's only so much help I can give you. I can't physically promise you a job because it's not on my responsibility to go to another employer and do everything because I can. It's down to you at the end of the day. But I can promise I can do my best. I can promise to, push you in the right direction. But you ultimately have to do the work. Steph, there was quite a few jobs I've tagged you in, and obviously it's down for you to make that decision from that. And I can't really do any more than that. Oliver, who recently started with us a couple of weeks ago, I tagged him in the job. He literally used to be a CCTV operator actually recently, and needed to change career direction, and the job came up, said, oh, this might be suitable for you. And he actually took action, found the job, and is now working, and he can, move into the career that he wants to. But unless your learners take action, they take action themselves, they're not going to be able to get the benefits of the courses and the programs that you teach them as well. Online learning. What are benefits of online learning?
Flexibility.
Work around it.
Yeah, it's more. I think now, especially because COVID, I think as teachers and tutors, we've all had to learn to adapt. I think because obviously now there's been the introduction of a lot more online platforms, and like you said, like with Zoom and things, we've all had to learn new skills. And I think that's kind of then crossed over into our learners, so that now we can offer that like higher level of flexibility, where previous it was kind of, if you didn't attend the session, you'd miss so much, where now there's, things where you can record sessions, you can upload them on online learning platforms. And really, if a learner doesn't attend a session, yes, they're missing certain parts of it, but a lot of the main structure of it, they can find and access at any time that's suitable for them.
Yeah, and that's if they choose to do so. So they don't always do that. Now, the resources I sort of published is, I don't think everyone's gone through every single resource. You have to be able to determine which ones are most suitable for you at any given time as well. You've got all the recordings. They may not be out immediately, but they do take a few days. But if you want to watch them, you can. If you want to do a bit more reading in other areas, you can as well. And you just have to be a bit mindful as well potential issues like plagiarism, for example, of the content that's been accessed as well. So again, we've got some learners who will plagiarize some completely obscure learning theories. That's something I don't particularly teach, and you can tell it's plagiarized. It just doesn't make sense to apply to a different industry, which then they're currently teaching. So again, it's the your learners have to be actively looking, and online learning is great. It's how much research that person is going to do in addition to what they're given as well. Because again, we talk about plagiarism. We can't give everyone too much help, and although we give you quite a bit of information regarding each sort of topic that we do, you still need to go out and do your own independent research on top of that as well. And that sort of leads into the next sort of stage of independence. You need to decide what you're going to study during the session. So I can only point you in the right directions, but you have to determine what you're going to talk about, and even what you're going to choose to study onwards. So realistically, you can go down the route of the level 6. You go down the routes of master's degrees after this, or again, you might just think, this is enough for me. I'm going to move on to a different subject for now, and maybe I might revisit it later. And you have to figure out what's important to you. And as a tutor, the whole point of tutoring is to make this learning meaningful and relevant to real life as well. So again, how are these independent skills going to help to take your learners to the next level? And what you think about security, what are the next stages for your learners after they've completed the course?
Potentially CCTV.
Yeah,
other realms of security.
Down other routes, they might go down the management route. What about Stephanie in your industry? What are the next sort of steps for your learners?
Management, nursing, physiotherapy, occupational therapy. A lot of them branch out into NHS, and some go into the private sector. So there's quite a lot, to be fair. There's a lot of development for my learners.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it's unless they have a sort of independency where they can go off and explore these different careers, they're just literally going to be stuck where they are. And that's really vital for them to grow as professionals as well. So question 7 is explain 5 reasons why they should take responsibility and give examples and benefits of that. So once you finish with them, someone else is going to have to hold their hand, or they're going to have to stand on their own 2 feet. Steve, any sort of reasons within your own subjects you teach why learners should take responsibility?
Problem is there isn't in ours, because literally they turn up for 3, maybe 6 hours, then they go home. It's only if I deliver I might do 2 PEDS courses, the 2-day course maybe once or twice a year, and a 3-day photo once every 3 years maybe, if that. So it's very, very difficult to do that. The only one I've got it would be is when I'm delivering for an awarding body with a workbook they've got to complete throughout the course. By the end of the day, if they don't complete the award. That's the only one that I've got. The rest of it, there isn't a huge lot of responsibility for it.
But that's going to limit their potential, isn't it? Just by doing that, because they don't have that, that exposure to, after this course, you should really start reaching out to increasing your network to help people, so people can help you in your next stages. You might go down a different route. You might be looking for different jobs. So who are the people that could be mentoring you, potentially coaching you or whatever to help you along that next stage?
I think because most learners I get, they're only there because work, so they have to do the course. If it wasn't for that, they wouldn't do any training at all. Yeah,
absolutely. And when they're extrinsically motivated, generally speaking, they'll not take the learning, seriously, to be honest. I'm not saying they won't, but the rest of it, they won't take it any further than that course. And it just stunts their potential. Paul?
So, again, it's about self-development, isn't it? So learners take responsibility for their own learning. If it's an education training that I'm delivering, they need to take responsibility so they know where they're gonna be and where they need to be and what they need to do.
Yeah, perfect. And Aaron, I don't think we asked you this one.
So they fully actually understand what it is they've undertaken. You know, if you don't have full responsibility for it, you know, anyone can take information from a computer or Google and whack it into a workbook and pass the course, but taking responsibility is about taking ownership for it and knowing exactly what it is and how it does benefit you in whatever the outcome was, what you wanted it for in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And it applies to you guys. Actually, once you've you know gone through the theories, how are you going to implement them? What you've learned, and that's down for you. No one else can actually do that for you. Lovely. Question 8 is, hold on, it's about why is it important that personal tutoring programs support the development of learning and transferable skills? So we have touched upon this as well briefly. Employability. So within your own sort of subjects, and try and keep it within your own subjects as well. So what 5 skills are critical for your learners to be successful?
Communication.
Compassion in mind, probably, with it being health and social care, definitely compassion. So following in line with the 6 Cs, so probably compassion's a big one, I think, when you're dealing with like health and social care, because obviously you've got people who are on the end of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quite poorly, so it's not just a run of the mill. You've got to be, you know, you've got to have that ability to demonstrate compassion.
Yeah. Steve, I know this is going to be a difficult one for you. What skills do you think they need to be successful?
I think for me, open-mindedness is one. So when things change, we just be open-minded and the ability to adapt. Obviously, compassion, like Steph mentioned as well, because obviously a lot of topics I'm delivering are obviously the mandatory training bits and pieces linked in sort of health and social care. So I'd say they're some of the key skills they're going to need. Attention to detail is going to be another one at times, because you'd be surprised the amount of stuff people do where there is no attention to detail. And it's very easy to see where accidents and injuries happen within the workplace that go on. So I would say from that point of view, that's what I would say.
Yeah. Paul?
I think when they actually go out to work and actually put the subject into practice for security, it's going to be thick skin and patience, and tolerance.
Yeah, I think as well that just being open to listening to different people as well. Just being aware of, even just reflecting on how others deal with, you know, members of the public. So actually, you take the goods and bads from every interaction. I think as well, even from your being teachers, is in a way a top skill you need to have is being able to, you know, apply what you feel, your reflection skills of what works and what doesn't for different scenarios as well. Because again, you have to be able to adapt to different teachers as well. And what are the importance of realistically transferable skills? Do you think about, you know, employability, for example? It's a lot of these skills needed to, apply within the workplace, but actually apply to their career as well. Communication skills is, you know, every single industry requires good communication skills. Without those skills, they're going to definitely limit their potential in the workplace. What about yourselves? Do you think about your own transferable skills? What other industries would they apply to?
I think a lot of skills would kind of transfer to a lot of sectors, to be honest. I think there's no one fits all for each sector. I think things like communication, you know, compassion, respect, integrity, I think they all kind of transfer into all sectors in some way, shape or form. Obviously because of the person who's doing the delivery and obviously the learners. So they'll have all touched upon one of them or multiple of them at a different stage in their lives or their own experiences. So I think it's the transfer to everything. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I think to some degree they will to a higher or lesser extent, but yeah, absolutely. You talk about, I think for dealing with the TACA suite qualifications, planning is probably like the biggest skill that people need to learn. And that's basically how do you juggle your every different commitment you've got going on. A lot of people say, yeah, I don't have time, but it's just they don't plan the time properly to make the most of it. But again, there are skills that can be developed in any sort of industry. Can you give me an example of one skill that you feel that you should be developing yourself?
Time management.
Time management?
Good answer.
Yeah. No. And I always think with time management is, you know, what ways can we sort of cut corners as well? And we talked about earlier about me automating my English and maths assessment. That's one way of improving my time management. Yeah, is there ways that you can automate stuff, especially within your business, Paul? There's lots of apps out there that can, you know, automate the process for you. So for one thing, when a learner signs up to a course, it now works where, depending on which course you sign up to, it will automatically now populate all your OneDrive folder, all the files that you need for that, and email it across without me actually having to have a look at it. That saves me about 5 minutes each time. But if you think about all these extra 5 minutes here and there, for me, an extra 30 minutes in my day to do potentially to just do personal things will make a massive difference to my well-being. Just think about it that way, where you can in a way cut corners, I suppose.
It's called the Kaizen method.
The Kaizen, yeah, Lean Six. Yeah.
Great way to look at things. For every minute we save over a year, it's 365 minutes. You know, that's leading right up to over 5 years to full day now. So the guy Toyota, wasn't it, who developed that?
Yeah, so in fairness, we decided to lean our household. So we put basically our wash baskets and stuff in places where we're going to be when the clothes will come off, and just small things like that will do add up. Just think about areas in your lives, I suppose, where you can cut corners, I suppose, to just make life a lot easier. Stephanie, what about yourself? What skills do you think you could develop?
Probably in relation to my IQA practice. So I think it's like confidence. So I think obviously I wouldn't say I was newly qualified, but I've been doing IQA for a while. But I think it's just developing that more confidence around things like, you know, sample planning and standardization. Like I'm pretty happy with what I do so far, but I still think I can just keep, you know, striving forward with better practice with my IQA. Yeah,
I'm doing a lead IQA course as well, which you're more than welcome to attend. Aaron,
you're not coming on it, Aaron. No. You set a quote for me then.
I've got, in fairness, I've got quite a few people wanting to do the lead IQA. I've already got the other quals, but we're going to do it part of the whole qual going straight through to lead IQA as well, which you're more than welcome to join. I'm not going to cover it within the diploma because there's just limited time, but as a second qualification, you're more than welcome to join. We'll go through how potentially you can share your meetings, that sort of thing, to give you that more confidence in IQA practice. Steve, what about yourself?
I'm not really sure. Obviously, because of the work that I do, it's hard to know unless people are going to go on, and like some of the people we get on courses, some decide to go on and do things like nursing degrees, things like that. So some of that could take that from a transferable point of view, but it's difficult.
Yeah. What about from where you want to be rather than what you're currently doing?
I think the problem is with what I'm doing, if I ran my own business with it, it would literally be, I don't think I'd be running block courses. It'd be a lot of the courses I currently run. But obviously, I'd be charging rather than being paid a freelance rate to go and deliver. So I think for me, that's the only way it would sort of go. So again, it wouldn't really have a huge impact, I don't think.
Yeah, okay. Now look at this question. We're going to twist it slightly to transfer skills you can develop as a personal tutor, so giving support to your learners. For me, one thing I'm going to be working on, which I'm actively working on, is the ability to, let's say, influencing people to take priority over their studies. I think that's really important for what I do. Again, that's going to help people kind of see, like, don't think of the short term, is a lot of effort what we're currently doing, and just think about that long term. How do we negotiate, I suppose, from being dealing with the current to looking at, you know, how this is going to affect you in 3 years' time. Because again, if you don't make these changes now, then 3 years down the line, you're going to be in exactly the same place, which you kind of is the reason why you sign up for the course, is to ensure that you do make that leap. So again, look at the spin from it from a tutoring perspective. What skills do tutors need to help your learners to pass those courses? Okay, Aaron, I'm going to jump on you first for that one now. As a tutor, what skills could you develop?
Me, I could certainly develop interpersonal skills with introverts.
Yeah.
Being able to look at people's behaviours. You know, obviously, what the unit we're doing, I'm finishing off at the moment, is looking at behaviours in the classroom and not just reacting to them, but working better with them than what I currently do.
Yeah. Now, potentially, you've got the alternative where you could actually signpost the learners. We talk about how relationships will, you get on better with other people, and I get on better with introverts because actually you really understand them. But potentially, you could signpost those who don't quite fit your personality match actually to someone else who might be better suited as well.
Yeah.
You mentioned communication, which in fairness is applicable to every single role, so you can actually use that one, not a problem. Stephanie, with IQA, again, you could look at it from a perspective of how can you potentially standardize your practice across different subjects that a learner may face, so you could be supporting them from different qualifications. So yeah, that could work. Steve, anything else you can think of off the top of your head?
No, I think from my point of view, things that I could develop from it all would be think more about the way I approach when people give me answers, where sometimes maybe the way I come across could be a bit blunt rather than straightforward. I think from that point of view, that could be a bit of benefit, and maybe being better at dealing more challenging topic areas as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's having a bit more confidence, I suppose, in having those conversations. Actually,
it's a bit like the examples when we put the scenarios up earlier on that you gave. Whereas in the role that I do, I don't really get involved with those types of things. So like where you talk about, you speak to different departments within the organisation, I don't really have to do that because I'm out, or they come to a room, they leave.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, it would be taking more of a tutoring role, is picking up the skills and getting more confident, spotting those signs, and then knowing where I was going to go with those and how I would manage them in a good manner.
Yeah, so you've recognised, areas where you don't have as much exposure. So potentially you can look at getting yourself more exposure to having those conversations as well to, help develop yourself as a tutor, I suppose, in that way. And lastly, how do you embed these skills into your sessions? Right, let's say, for example, I want to teach people about how to plan their own time. How could we incorporate that into our sessions? What activities could we do, maybe?
Get learners to do like a SWOT analysis or SMART targets, maybe set them in the session, kind of help them to see times and goals and, how to set things.
Yeah, so one activity I do is like, say, right, here's a 24-hour clock. I want you to map your day, your whole day, that 24 hours. Where can we potentially save a bit of time for you? Where in your day are you sort of wasting on unnecessarily on things that are not actually helping you in your life? Social media, how much time do we waste on social media every day? Or even checking emails, because people at work check their emails like 20 times during the day. Do we need to? One thing I've used before is a sort of a time log. So you spend a week, actually I did it for a whole month. You actually map every activity you do during a whole month, and it'll give you statistics on where you are spending your excess time. So can we look at these, which areas are actually, if we look at the Pareto principle, 20% generally, are the most important. So again, can we maximize that 20% and actually minimize things that don't really matter to us at all? Again, looking at ways that you can cut your own sort of time to make life easier to fit in things that are actually more important to you, like your family. So again, these get neglected, and especially in teaching, because you have to mark and all that outside of your own time. So again, how do you adapt? Aaron, you've come up with a solution where you get up a little bit earlier to find that time, to help you with your studies, and that works for you.
Works for me.
Yeah, and that's it. You find things that work for you rather than what the general norm should be doing. Okay, what strategy? How do you engage your learners? What do you do to keep your learners engaged?
I I try to incorporate all the learning styles. So
Yeah.
I do some PowerPoint, do a bit of video with pictures in there, talking to practicals, getting up and actually doing it, giving out books, handouts. So just trying to incorporate all the different learning styles to keep all the learners engaged.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you know which learning styles that your learners actually have? What do you do?
Well, if I'm teaching, say, for a emergency first aid at work, I don't really, if I'm to be perfectly honest. If I'm teaching an education training, I'll do a learning style questionnaire to find out what their learning style is and how they learn. And that helps them down the line as well, where how they progress and what they do as well as what I do.
Yeah, perfectly. Yeah, good examples there. Aaron, what do you do?
I just generally talk to them. I think I'm quite a good people person. So I keep them engaged by relating points that they've brought up with the lesson back to them. So that way, you know, if I see the flagging of something, I kind of remember something that was said earlier on and direct that question to them, sort of bring them back in. And it kind of reinforces the fact that I've not just listened, I've respected them enough to use one of their own points to make a point to the rest of the group.
Yeah, that's important, isn't it? You bring them into teaching rather than it's all about you. You bring in their experiences into the classroom, which is, you know, critical. Stephanie, what do you do?
A good old-fashioned group debate. I always find that kind of gets them engaged. So if they are a little bit bored, or you can see it's like tailing off, then I might introduce maybe a bit of a group discussion or something that's current at the moment, so any changes or anything new, and then just get them to discuss. And then depending on what times I've got, you know, I can kind of limit it to a 15, half an hour minute activity. So kind of gets them interested again, but then we've still got enough time to finish off with a conclusion or what we started earlier on in the day.
Yeah, lovely. And Steve?
I think for me is trying to spot when's the time to pick for breaks to go into play, and always mixing the activity up. So when we sort of see learners dropping off, can we change the activity that we're doing just to engage with them all? And that's one of the key ones I tend to find when I'm doing things like my martial art teaching with kids and that. The minute you sort of see as soon as something's coming on, you know, it's sort of, right, it's time to move the activity on something different. So you regain that concentration and focus that they've actually got, which has sort of dropped off at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And by frequently changing your activities, you're hitting all different learning styles at the same time as well. So again, do you have time to incorporate, you know, a different learning preference for every single activity you have? No, you don't. So again, it's that, can you create a variety? Because again, it's you're going to hit every different need anyway.
I think the other thing is also when you're teaching, if you've got quite a PowerPoint heavy subject, it's about getting those learners involved to do things, to discuss and talk. So they say, I think the statistic is within 20 minutes, you'll lose someone's interest if you're just talking to them.
Yeah.
And just reading off a PowerPoint. So you need to get them involved. You need to get them discussing with you, or up and doing things, or doing group research or group discussions and bits and pieces. If you just stand there and you just talk to them and read off a PowerPoint, you're just going to lose their interest altogether.
That's the biggest problem, especially when you look at the AET micro teachers, that people create their PowerPoints, they'll have all the text on that and they're just reading to them, and they expect the full 15 minutes to be PowerPoints. Like, get your learners to do stuff, ask questions, there needs to be some sort of assessment in there. You can't gauge your learning unless you assess them somehow as well. So it's really important you do. And again, depending on the type of studies or type of teaching you're doing as well, online learning is a lot more difficult than classroom. Classroom gives you the ability to move in and out of things quite quickly, whereas online learning, again, on the technology, especially when you've got some learners who can't even get their cameras on, they can't work out how to show on the camera, along those lines, it just makes it even more difficult as well. So again, for me, my sort of number one thing that I do is I ask everyone questions, making sure everyone has the opportunity to participate. So you just know then you value that learner as an individual rather than just talking to a select few every single time. And you do get it you'll probably find it in your classes that you'll get a lot of extroverts will give you who spend most of the time talking about themselves, when actually you get one or two who are really quiet, and you have to try and draw them into the conversation to get them involved as well. So sometimes looking at group activities as well, which Stephanie mentioned, and it's really good to get people out their shells as well, but you have to be careful so that you don't sort of make people too uncomfortable if they don't want to talk in that environment as well. So again, this is where your group dynamics is really important. It's making sure you pair people up with the right people at the right times as well. Again, understanding some individuals who are introverts might be better from reflective tasks rather than just solely practical activities, which may not suit them. But again, it's all dependent on your subject that you're teaching and what the qualification requirements are as well. So with that in mind, I'm going to try and split you into two groups, so 2 groups of 2. So just want you to write down these topics. You've got accountability, session planning, record keeping, active listening, and IAG. I just want you to write down for just very briefly, what they are, and how do they engage with learning. Okay. Now, hopefully, right, I'm going to stop sharing. Has everyone written that down?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing the slide, and hopefully I can create somehow, if it will allow me, the breakout rooms, where the option is for that. Right. Where are you? Here we go. Right, and go. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes there. Welcome back, Aaron.
Hi, Middlesbrough 0-0.
Yeah. So playoffs today.
The playoffs for Coventry, 0-0. It's finished.
When's the second leg?
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Steve, who do you support?
I'm a Liverpool fan.
Liverpool fan. Plymouth did all right, didn't they?
They did all right, yeah. It was. I went up to Wembley for the playoff for the Papa John's Trophy, and that was a nightmare day out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What? 2-0 down after 7 minutes.
That's what you want, isn't it? I remember those days of going to Home Park. You know, that nice little night out evening game, and yeah.
I wouldn't surprise me, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they get on going up.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So, how does accountability help engage learners?
It's, as we were saying, it's about being accountable to the learner, ensuring that we're meeting their needs, and also the learners being accountable to themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, I would say it's also things like us deadlines that we get set by learners as well. So, for example, obviously, because it's not one that really comes into lot with what I do, but if I think back to when I was at uni, if we had to have information for lectures and stuff we needed to know, or you're sending paragraphs off to be looked at so you can get feedback on to put that into your coursework and stuff, if you don't get enough time, obviously you can't put that information into the session, into your coursework you're going to do. So I think it's also, from that point of view, being aware of that as well.
Yeah, it's also using your IRP to identify their learning needs as well, so making sure that they actually follow through and yourself follows through as part of their sort of agreement. What about session planning? How does session planning help learners to stay engaged?
Managing expectations, isn't it?
Yeah, managing expectations. What else?
We've put in breaking the lesson down into bite-sized chunks to be able to plan for breaks, and also to put in activities at times where we think the course might be slowing down a little bit, keeping it actively engaging.
Yeah, absolutely. And taking into account as well learners' abilities, and some people are going to get through, especially when you talk about writing tasks. There's a massive variation in how quickly people can write, and how do we keep them entertained as well, engaged if they've already done it and they're waiting on someone else. Again, it's the variation of our session plans to accommodate different learner needs as well.
Yeah. We'd said that it was like, to me, it's a working document, because even though you might have a set scheme of work or lesson plan, depending on the group of learners you have and their abilities and limitations, you may need to adapt it. So to me, I think the session planning, it's just a constant working document.
Yeah, and with I don't know how aware you are of the SIA here, Steph, but the SIA are very strict with your session plans and making sure that you meet the guided learning hours for each.
Yeah, Aaron's told me.
And it's crap. It's crap because actually every single session you'll have learners going at different paces. Some groups, depending on the size, will go through at quicker rates, and always like, why do we have to adhere to these recommended learning hours when there are so many different variations of how quickly? Again, if people are really not, you talk about, let's say, for example, I taught a course for ex-police officers. Realistically, they're going to go through that content really quickly in comparison to those who have no idea and have come from the job centre. Because again, you've got those different abilities within the same class. So that's massively going to influence it. But session plans, realistically, are a plan. They're not actually set in stone, because you should be, as teachers, be able to, and this is a key skill, is being able to adapt your session plan accordingly to how your session's going as well. So that's really important.
I think also a session planning, when you talk about the SIA, when it comes to things like physical intervention, if you've got 12 learners, that's fine. But if you've only got 4 or 5 learners, you've still got to meet the same hours, and you've got, say, less than half of a full course.
Yeah.
You've got to drag that out and spread that out a lot more in order to meet those hours.
Yeah, I find it's quite outdated, the guided learning hours, because people they start at different positions and they'll end in the same place. It's that, how quickly is it taken to get through that? I think more steps, different steps each time. Yeah, I feel like guided learning hours they're based on the norm rather than the individuals, which as teachers is all about individual learning needs, not as a group to say, because actually people are different as well.
Matthew, a great point of that is the SIA and Highfields and other AOs. Searching scenarios, 15 minutes per learner, 12 learners equates to 3 hours. Conflict management scenarios, 15 minutes per learner equates to 3 hours. Physical intervention, Q&A and scenarios, 15 minutes per learner equates to 3 hours. So that is 9 hours of assessment time, which is good. When I've got 4 learners, I'm not allowed to let the learners go home at 4, even though I'm losing essentially 6 hours of assessment time because I don't have people to assess. But they literally say, oh no, you've still got to keep them to that time.
Yeah, it's why I like doing UK, because actually they're a bit more understanding about these sort of situations. And you talk about, why do you have to do pre-distance learning if it doesn't count towards your final assessment? What is the point? So long as they pass the exam, if they don't put in time, they're going to struggle in the exam, and it's on them. It's getting to documented where it's all about processes rather than actually have the learners pass. If they met the requirements, has the qualification be done, appropriately? That should be it. You should all be left to make your own decisions, use your own expertise and that's why the SIA falls so far behind every other industry, because you don't have that ability to change. Let's say, for example, Stephanie could probably do whatever she wants as long as it fits within the learning outcomes.
Right.
And pretty much even with these qualifications that I teach, is like, I have as much realistically, because I've moved away from certain organisations who require us to fill up their paperwork. It gives me as much flexibility to incorporate the training as I see fit, using what I've learned over the years, and that's what teaching is about, really. What about active listening?
A special skill.
Active listening is the difference between first date and marriage.
Yeah.
Difference between listening and hearing. Everybody can hear, but not everybody listens. It's a special skill, active listening, very special skill, I think.
How do you develop active listening?
How do I?
How do you develop your active listening?
I don't know. I think it's just something I've always done because I've got kids, like pre-kids. I don't know, but now I've got kids. It's like I think when you relate it to like special educational needs and things, every behaviour and attitude is a form of communication. So I think it's about just developing that understanding of communication, and you've got to ask open questions, you've got to reflect, you've got to summarise, and really make sure that you've understood what that person was trying to communicate. And then at the end, when you do your reflection, your summary, then that gives them that opportunity to say, well, actually, no, this is what I meant, but then that shows that you're giving that respect because you've been able to summarise what they were saying. That proves you were listening, which is, I think, vital for some learners. It's like me and Paul were saying, because they might seem like they're listening, but then if you said, oh, let's just recap what was mentioned earlier on, they won't have a clue because they weren't listening. Yeah,
it's a different thing, isn't it, between hearing and actually recapping what has been said in the conversation as well. So that's why sort of communication is really important as well, is that how do you should in theory be able to translate that message back to demonstrate you understood rather than you just heard. One thing I did miss as well is record keeping. How does record keeping help with engaging learning?
Well, as we were saying, record keeping is everything throughout the learner journey. It's all your initial assessments, it's your feedback forms, your registration forms, and it needs to meet GDPR as well when we're storing it. And as one thing Stephanie said was, it's about developing the learner, and it's a constant. If it's not recorded, it didn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you need to record things to show that you've actually done certain things, like assessments, and if a learner's been referred, why they've been referred.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. Without any sort of evidence, it's all good. And I think having these conversations are better than written communication, but you can't really, unless you record it, you can't really evidence that conversations actually happen. No. Now, for someone like me, I'm a really forgetful person, and I have a conversation with someone in 10 minutes, it's gone. Having that, especially when you have more than 1 or 2 points that you need to raise. So I need that written down for actually me to go back to and help to engage my learning. Do you think about learners who potentially have learning difficulties as well, or even struggle to just express themselves verbally? But those records actually are different, make a massive difference to that individual as well. And lastly, we've got IAG. So information, advice, and guidance. How does that help to engage with learners?
It sets out that they're on the right course. They've got the clear expectations of what they're going to achieve, what they can do at the end of it. Because, there's no point putting someone on a level 5 course if they're at a level 2 standard, even if they believe they want to do the level 5. Information, advice, and guidance can help steer them towards a more relatable path for their learning journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, did someone actually step in then? No. Again, just giving that extra advice, that extra guidance, that extra support helps them to understand what they need, I suppose, from the actual course to help them to engage as well. So, when you point out earlier, Aaron, that your learners need to engage in the course to actually pass the training, then that sets their expectations of how they should approach the qualification, rather than just sat there quietly in the background, because they're not going to get much benefit from that as well. So even with your, I want to be a trainer in this, and I think, anyone can tell you this is any sort of course documentation. Say, this is probably going to be the right course for you, but unless you actually give them that specific guidance, they can have different goals that mean, actually it's not suitable for you, because actually you'll be better off going down an alternative route for your own sort of guidance. And just knowing that as well helps them to keep on track. They know what they need to complete or what they need to do to get on to that next stage of their learning journey as well. Okay, so question 9 is about, and I'm aware you cannot even see my PowerPoint for this screen, but question 9 is analysing three of these strategies can help to engage learners with your learning. And again, think about your own experiences, how they have helped you to engage with your own learning. You're on this course and you all complete your coursework because you are aware of the next stages in your career, where you want to go. But explain benefits and limitations of each strategy. So again, they're not always going to work with every single learner. And if possible, link strategy to relevant literature if you could find some. Okay, any questions on that?
No.
Right, I'm going to try an alternative activity. Again, going through different types of online learning. So hopefully, and this could actually not work, but I'm going to give it a try. Can you see a whiteboard?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, let's just wing it, and I'm gonna draw. Right. Why do people? Actually, I'm going to put a title in. So, why do learners withdraw from your courses?
Lack of understanding.
Yeah, Steffi's very high. If you just write your answers on the board for me.
No, that was Aaron who wrote that. It's not me, that was Aaron.
Oh, what a good tool this is.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks for that, guys. Yeah.
I just happen to be unfortunate timing there.
We'll wait to get the Apple Pen out.
This
actually, like my childish.
This looks like the old Football Manager.
God, it's awkward to write on.
Just use the text. Just type the text.
Yeah, that's fine. The T on the sidebar.
I found it.
Oh, there's a text there. Oh my God, this is going to be a disaster.
Where are you men at? What are you doing? I've put 3 on. I'll be done.
Right, I'm going to give you 60 more seconds. I'm literally just playing around with the app more than anything. So my sort of philosophy when it comes to training is to embrace new technology and just give it a go and see what happens. So that's the only way we can kind of learn. Because what I find a lot of teachers do is they try and play everything safe. They try these activities that they don't know if they're going to work, so they just avoid them. But unless you try it, how do you know? It's about self-reflection. So you've got a nice little giraffe who's clinging onto a tree. Right. So Aaron, you look like you are doing some stuff.
He's doing nothing. He's doing nothing.
Just making it look like he's actively working.
Yeah, he's good at that.
So yeah, so we've got finance. Yeah, absolutely. Can't afford it.
Yeah.
Life changes as well, where there's been times when learners, they're redundant from the workplace. They can no longer complete their studies. They get hit by excessive food prices because that's the way life has gone right now. Lack of support. Yeah, the tutors are not really engaged with them, or they're not getting that support from the learning provider, or even from the workplace as well, which might be a critical part of it, especially when it comes to apprenticeships. So they're relying on their employers as well. A lack of confidence. Yeah. Thanks for that, Aaron.
This is a great resource, this.
Yeah. I'm already enjoying Zoom.
You just stupid. Stephen's the tutor. Really? Really?
Oh, what a great resource this is. Brilliant.
I'm really going to have to refer back to our ground rules, ladies and gents.
Please.
Yep, lack of confidence, definitely. Lack of interest. Why a lack of interest?
Being forced on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially when it comes to corporate training. In Steve's case, this could actually happen a lot. They're put on the course when they don't really see the value in it, and it comes back to how do we link the purpose of the course to that individual, and that's quite important as well. Bullying, yeah, definitely. So we don't address. We had it before, actually, quite recently on one of my courses about 6 months ago. A learner they were doing some group activities. I didn't actually hear this until like a week later. There were some remarks from another learner about another learner, which she didn't say anything. They kept it quiet, and I just got an email saying, yeah, this person's withdrawn because of this reason. The employer sort of did their investigations, and there was sort of apology made in the background, and that was sort of it. But that person decided he didn't want to continue with his studies because of that one individual. So again, from our ground rules, unless we set ground rules and our expectations, where I'd like to think, every single learner can come to me and talk to me about these problems, they don't always do so because maybe they lack that confidence, or in the world of, health and social care, people are not aware of it, or they're not aware, and the extra feelings of being abused, even in the classroom as well. Overwhelmed? Yeah, how overwhelming has the diploma been for you guys?
Not too bad now, but it certainly was. Like we said the other night when we were on Unit 1. Unit 1 was overwhelming, wasn't it?
Yeah, I should probably just end with Unit 1, shouldn't I? Really, but so that Unit 1 prepares you for the rest of the course quite well. Stephanie, can you stop moving your mouse button around, please?
I'm not even touching it.
Just grow up, Steph.
No, I'm not. Honestly, I've got all to me. I'm not.
Your name is just like moving across the like.
Honestly, I'm not even touching.
It's going all over the place.
I'm being penalised here. This whiteboard's just not for me.
Right,
I'm keeping my hands there.
I've placed the whiteboard, but apparently it should be available to you afterwards as well. So time is the biggest factor, I think, for this course by far, because everyone doesn't have time, because you have lives, you have work, you have jobs, you have all sorts, children, you have, Arsenal's title challenge to follow as well. So,
well, City and Everton have kicked off, haven't they? I'm not watching it. I'm in the other room. There's no TV in here.
So as an Everton fan, I will be glued to the scores, and I'll tell you what the scores are. Oh dear, Aaron.
No, it's still 0-0 too there.
Yeah, we're just spelling that. So why do learners withdraw from courses? Think about your own courses, why they withdrawn, and thinking about what could you potentially do to overcome it. So financial, what can you do to help learners overcome financial burden?
Like what you've done, break it down into 12 monthly payments.
Yeah, absolutely. So in fairness, we've now changed it. So we've broken down to 24 monthly payments to make it even more affordable. That's the equivalent of you doing an extra teaching gig, one extra day over 4 months or so. And I think, if you value your learning, then potentially it's not much to give up. And you still have some learners who, can you take £1,000 off the prices? Like, I could, but honestly, I would probably lose that interest in actually helping you to achieve your potentials. It's all about, that time, I suppose, is what, makes the difference between, I can give you that support. I will answer your messages, relatively quite quickly because it's part of the service that you get, I suppose. Again, student finance, do you have funding in place potentially to help people? And I get this a lot. Do you have any student finance? Sadly, I don't, so I can't really support you in that. But again, I have other things like, if you lose your job during your course, I'm more than happy to give you 6 months break from payment because, I'm relatively nice. It just helps people to get through those sticky periods as well.
Some companies work with charities and things. Like, I know as a place I worked with before, we worked with certain charities that would maybe pay for, like bus fares or meals, or if we were working in collaboration with job centres, they would provide support with travelling and nursery places, things like that, to try and, encourage them to stay on the course. Obviously, it's difficult because then you get a lot of people who abuse that, because I don't think the rules are very strict in some places, but you get them people who have that general need and they can get support with things that matter to them, which will then keep them in learning.
Yeah, absolutely. I did some stuff with the Prince's Trust, and they would actually, and this was in London, they'd have one guy come in around 3 o'clock every day and massively interrupt my course. But it was essential that everyone got their, the tube fees and all paid for. Some of them would disappear to go to the station to get their tickets validated, and so be it. That's what got them on the course, and there's nothing wrong with that. And again, if you can potentially access these pots to make life a lot easier for your students, and that's a great thing as well. Think about your own personal life. So parenting, being a mother, being a father can actually be a limitation to withdraw from your course because of your own personal things going on as well. And that's the sole reason why we don't start courses before 9:30, is such to help to overcome those issues. And even for myself, is I drop my kids off pretty much to now because they're with me 24/7, unfortunately. But the reality of it is, it helps to accommodate, those different needs of dropping kids off to school and that as well. Potentially working, you could beat the rush hour, get there before 9:30 to work. And now we're changing it for the evening, which turns out, the evening courses seem to suit everyone a lot better, because people don't really want to take too much time off work, because it does impact you financially if you have to take holiday or if you have to give up a potential opportunity for that. So that seems to work better for most people. But again, can we adapt things to meet the needs of your learners? Any other reasons why learners will withdraw?
Moving house.
Yeah, like emotional, personal,
changing circumstances, like psychologically, mental health
emotionally,
crisis,
breakdown of marriages or relationships.
Change your job role.
Yeah. I've had it quite recently where someone's taken on a second job and it's massively impacted her work. And obviously she went through Unit 1, 2, and 3 quite easily. Unit 4, it was nowhere near as good in comparison, because actually the impact it's had on her personal life. And said, you know what, just take a break from it. You're doing all right. Just stop there and continue when you're ready. So here are obviously a lot of examples we've got. Ill health, mentally and physically. Can they complete the course? How many times have, first aid, for example, we've talked about learners who, don't have knee pads, or they need knee pads and, they hurt them. SIA, you could see people getting injured in the physical interventions. That is a possibility. Maybe during the top-up course, they've been injured on the night before when they're working, and it impacts their ability to carry out the course. Ill health or bereavement of a partner, family, or a friend. That could be one example. Taking up changes to your current employment, so financial, your personal, or let's say, for example, your employer has refused to pay for the course, so you've had to withdraw. Course is not meeting expectations, so maybe you weren't advised correctly at the start of the course. That's why the ILP is critical. Even you do some sort of consultation before you start the course. Maybe it was too demanding. So again, the diploma is surprisingly, the level 6 is a lot easier when it comes to completion than it is for the level 5. It's nowhere near as demanding for some reason. Don't know why, but you know, it's easier if you want to get your level 6. So not enjoying the course, maybe you don't enjoy it. So you tried it, you didn't like the study method potentially, or something just didn't quite work out for you, so you've given up. And lastly, it's the learner experience. So thinking about who goes to university, for example, for that whole university lifestyle, but it doesn't quite, especially during COVID, it didn't quite match up to previous expectations. So again, that could influence the enjoyment of the whole sort of process. Anything else you can think of?
Cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
Discrimination.
Sorry, Steph?
Discrimination. Just jumping on with Aaron.
Yeah, brilliant. Would that come underneath potentially mental ill health, though?
Family members pushing them out because of jealousy, or not a single mom. A partner decides she wants to go to college, university, or school to better herself. Abusive husband decides that he's not going to put that, so we'll keep saying childcare is not an option and turning up at the place of tutoring, those types of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else?
Changes in legislation.
No
longer makes it appropriate or applicable to the person. You think about security guarding and door supervisors, so reasonable adjustments have been taken out, haven't there? For you've got to prove you've got dyslexia to get a reader and things like that. So people just being put off from the outset, now knowing that they've got to prove a health condition that they've lived with their whole lives.
Yeah, you think potentially the hurdles now are not worth it. They're not worth it.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. Happy with those examples, or any more you want to go through? Or
no.
And that's the thing. It's everyone's got their own sort of reasons. It's just trying to establish as well within your training programs is what are the 5 common reasons learners potentially disengage. There might be, people may disengage because your course sign-up processes are way too difficult. They're way too involved, especially funded. How many times have you done a funded course? Day one, they go through all the paperwork, think, yeah, I'm not doing that, not a chance. And they just, I kind of used to do it about 3 or 4 days in. So if they were doing an SIO course, they would actually just crack on with the course and then just would sort the paperwork out when they're further down, they're more committed and further down the line. But again, just look at ways that people will disengage from learning, and what could you do to prevent that as well? So I've given examples of how we address disengagement, and again, sometimes it's going to be completely out of your hands. But what can you do to potentially lower that impact?
I've actually removed someone from a course to stop someone else dropping out because he was verbally abusive towards her. Called her names that I won't repeat on here, and it just wasn't acceptable, and I pulled him out and said, you're off the course. And I do believe that if I hadn't, she would have dropped out.
No, absolutely. And you need to, in fairness, you need to set that in your code of conduct. Your behavior, must meet minimum standards. Otherwise, if you are negatively affecting other people's learning, and that's the thing for me. If you're doing self-study, you choose, you're just going to be slack and not do it. That's kind of on you. But if you attend these virtual learning courses and you disrupt the rest of the class, actually, there's a higher, bar, I suppose, to thrown off straight away because I just don't want to. It's impacting everyone else, which is unfair. If you want to mess around, it impacts yours, so be it. But if it's someone else's, get rid. And potentially that person doesn't really live up to, again, that person's expectations of the course or expectations, their behavior doesn't match with the training providers as well. So talking about that person who booked his tutorial and decided to go on holiday and not say anything, then I don't particularly want to be working with those individuals. So I want people who care and actually have, let's be honest, the decency to notify me and not waste my time, and so I can spend it with people who actually really care about their studies, and that's more important to me. So that person just got a refund. I just don't want to entertain that person for 2 years, definitely not. And you have to as well think about your own mental health with the learners that you are. If you do have that option, Paul, you definitely can with what you do. But again, you have to think about your own mental health and how that's going to impact you. I've had to, in fairness, I had a tutorial with another individual about 3 weeks ago where I had to say, right, you are talking about something that's quite offensive, but it's not relevant to our discussions. We have to focus the conversation on your induction rather than you criticizing different awarding bodies, which I get it, but at the same time, I understand from the other perspective as well. It's quite a difficult conversation to have, to be honest. Again, you set your own expectations within your ground rules. Any questions so far? Do you want to grab a quick cup of tea? Yeah, I feel like you'll need one at the moment. Right, get yourself a drink, and I'm going to play a little game. Okay. Right, 10 minutes, 22?
Yep.
Lovely, I'll see you in 10 minutes.
Go.
Steph is the tutor, Aaron, really? You wouldn't do a better one than that.
I'll drop out, that's all I'm saying.
You hang on, I've taught you a course before.
Good course, end of life.
Yeah, and I delivered that to you and you passed.
No, it was good, that. I didn't just pass, I made your lesson. I did. I was able to bring so much relevant information to the Brazilian tribes who hold their ancestors up in the trees to let the tree grow.
Did you actually remember that stuff?
Yeah, all of it. Are you kidding? I remember most of it, of course. Yes,
no,
I remember.
Interesting. It was really interesting.
Yeah,
I liked everything.
Yeah, I'm a big like it was a really good course. So it was great. Some of the ones that they actually eat a small part of the family, so they're with them forever. Yeah, there was all sorts of.
Yeah,
no, it was a good course.
Like Day of the Dead, or like where they dig up their ancestors and they put them on the pot.
Yeah. No, it was a good course, generally.
Well, you didn't drop out with that one.
Well, it's only one day, wasn't it? Just put a brave face on.
Gosh. Yeah, this is why I won't come on any of your security courses, I'm telling you.
Pretty full of it.
I can imagine it's quite interesting.
You'd learn loads of it though. You'd learn loads for your IQA.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, because there's not many other courses that have so many different IQA elements within one course.
Yeah, I suppose, to be fair, yeah. Because mine are all just one block down there.
Yeah, that's it. You're looking at 4 or 5 different aspects of the course.
I know, but would you be the tutor?
Well, more than likely.
I'll have to consider it then.
You should do. Natural progression, that.
Yeah, see.
Still 0-0, Matt.
I've just looked at sorry, that's what I've been doing in the background. I've been looking at the report. Helen has